Bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio del podcast del Salón de Idiomas. Hi, Rox.
Hi, Alonso.
So, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, but I'm really excited about today's topic.
Yeah, I actually was really looking forward to talking about it since I am not feeling that great.
Oh, really? Okay, so just
Yeah.
tell me.
You see, I am trying to learn French.
Okay.
However, I feel like I am not learning anything else. I feel like I have just reached the frightening language plateau.
The plateau, the feeling stuck situation, right?
Yeah. Have you ever felt like that?
Yeah, I did. As a matter of fact, it did happen to me when I was learning Spanish. Yeah, I was 13 when I first came to Spain, and I believe the first 2 years were the critical ones.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I was like, am I ever going to learn Spanish as a native or anything? So I think it's a pretty normal feeling. You know?
Certainly. It's just a feeling that none of us want to have. So, yeah. Why do you think that this happens?
Well, I think it's pretty normal, and I believe that it happens because you've amassed certain knowledge so far, right? You are aware that there's still a lot ahead, and you're aware of the numerous mistakes you might be making. So perhaps that feeling of awareness, self-consciousness, or frustration leads to feeling stuck and perhaps a bit unmotivated. I'm not sure whether that explains, or I don't know. How do you regard that?
Yeah. I mean, I would pretty much agree to everything that you have just said. However, let's rewind a little and point out what the language plateau is for those who don't understand. It's kind of like if you were climbing a mountain and then this mountain becomes flat and you are not like climbing anymore. Okay, that's kind of like the language plateau. You see, when we are like learning languages at the very beginning, every time we sit on the chair, we're gonna actually just learn a bunch of new vocabulary, a bunch of new words, pronunciation, everything is really exciting and all that. However, we reach a point where we are like feeling, oh, we don't learn anything else.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think it's mostly a perception. Okay, perhaps it's more a perception problem than an actual situation. You know, because I'm pretty sure that most of us actually know more than we think we do.
Yeah,
right?
Certainly. Yeah. And that's where like also there's the case of people who feel confident or you feel comfortable enough.
Yeah.
Where when in your language, like you are completely capable of communicating or you are completely capable of recognizing all the words and all that. However, once you are out of your comfort zone, then things get a little bit dicey, right?
Indeed, yeah. I mean, what happens is that when you can make do with a few words, you know, or you can get by with the intermediate level, perhaps you believe that will be more than enough to handle whatever situation you might be in. So, but there actually you made a point here because if you feel that you can make do with the knowledge you've gained so far, perhaps you are not that eager to run the extra mile, you know?
Exactly.
And to push forward.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, people are completely comfortable here and they don't want to learn anything else. And well, if that's your goal to just have basic communication, then that's fantastic. However, let's imagine that you want to become more fluent as well as perhaps you need to have an advanced level. Well, then it is imperative to get out of this plateau. And to my mind, it boils down to one, feeling comfortable, and two, perhaps just like getting stuck in what I call like what is simple practice.
Okay.
So what is simple practice is like, like you watch movies or you listen to music or I don't know, like you just read everything in English, for instance, and you're completely comfortable with it. However, that is like just can say maintaining. Now, what I believe that is necessary to move away from this is to do the deliberate practice. Okay.
Okay.
Now, we have to think about language as a set of skills that you have to break down. For instance, like your listening, your speaking, your writing, as well as your grammar comprehension skills. All of these can be broken down.
Okay, right. So basically what you mean is that you separate the skills individually?
Yeah, exactly. For
Okay.
instance, like when you're preparing for the test, the listening, the writing, the reading, and so
Yeah.
on. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, you just break it down, and that way it is easier for you to recognize your weak points. You see?
Yeah. And this actually goes hand in hand with what I usually tell my students to do, And this, guys, please pay attention. And if you are up to it, do it. Journaling. Okay, journaling. So it's basically having a journal, a diary, and write, your progress, write about your progress every day. And within, you can tell what you've done wrong or what you have improved or even use some vocabulary, from class. And you can focus on the different skills, right? It's like, okay, so on writing, I realized that I still say people is when that's actually people are, okay? Yeah. So by writing that, you are both aware of your mistakes or your progress, and at the same time it's a kind of like a double lesson because you run over that again, right? So if you run over the lessons you are delivered in class by writing just a summary in your journal, you're more likely to remember the positive things or the weak points.
Exactly. And that takes you to the third part of like the deliberate practice, which is rebuilding your skills. And here is where a teacher comes perfectly fine. So, as you have mentioned, you are aware of your weaknesses, and that's where you go to your teacher and you say, hey, my weaknesses are A, B, and C. So you have beforehand all the things that you would like to practice. Perhaps you are not used to using phrasal verbs. Well, let's do an entire class about only phrasal verbs so I can feel comfortable using all of those and all that. And that is exactly how we can just eventually overcome this plateau and reach this advanced level more likely.
Yeah, and this works. I remember because we used to have that a lot, especially when we were delivering general English. We do have it now as well, but we have to force a bit our students to keep doing it. So the idea is like when you are learning the language, is to be to have the teacher who tells you who guides you, right, and tells you, what, I realized, or you told me that your weak point are phrasal verbs. We're going to be focusing on that. The whole class is going to be focused on carrying out different activities where you have to use phrasal verbs no matter what. And at the end of the class, you have this journal, which is provided by us, or whatever, you have your own journal if you like. And you might write down certain things you've learned from today's class, so as to say, and you set new objectives for the following class. Okay, so the following objectives will be imagine to have like a summary of your day by using 20 phrasal verbs you were provided, which is a bit forcing and a bit uncomfortable. Like, how on earth am I going to be using 20 phrasal verbs in a short summary? But if you write down on your journal the following day, you're much more likely to remember it, right? So I think that the combination between having a nice guide who can tell you, where to go, how to study, and what and how much to study, and you keeping track on it, might be the perfect combination to actually get out of the plateau zone.
Exactly. And likewise, not only is the teacher going to tell you your weaknesses as well, it is also necessary that you point out what kind of specific feedback you will require the most.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're like, I just want to like know what my mistakes are, and that's pretty much it. However, you have to like also say, hey, I know that I struggle quite a bunch with modal verbs. Can you focus really like a bunch on that so I can have as you said, like I don't know, like a bunch of exercises later so I can practice with it later. That are the kind of things that are gonna end up being extremely useful.
And and another thing that I believe it's important equally is to take the feedback nicely, right?
Exactly.
Because sometimes, and I saw that a lot, I witnessed it a lot with the writing material, right? So we have many people who do our online courses and they have this correction of the writings included. So when they're giving the feedback, they might be a bit taken aback because they say, oh my God, I still make the same mistakes all over again. Or I haven't even thought of this mistake when it comes to coherence, that I lack of coherence and stuff. So that might be a bit, can take a bit your motivation away. So what I recommend is take it as something which is extremely useful, so when you've given feedback, don't worry too much about it, okay? The most important thing is to pay attention to everything your teacher tells you and to try not to repeat it, but really consciously, because exactly. that might be a bit of a hard work for the teachers, to keep repeating the same thing all over again. And take it really seriously and make sure you don't repeat that, and you will see how fast you will advance.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's not like your teacher is going to be the teacher from Whiplash. Have you watched that movie?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
No, it's not gonna be like that, so don't worry about it. So yeah, I believe that with all these details, it is quite possible to just get out of the plateau and just reach the Mount Everest.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, guys. So remember, it's really being aware of your mistakes. Do what you're being told, especially if the teacher is a really good guide and helps you out to get out of that zone. And then another important thing, besides journaling, if you like, would be, to my mind, and perhaps you agree with me, is to be constantly exposed to reading. Okay, sure. So I believe that reading might be even more important than just watching series. Watching series is actually important for your listening skills, yet reading is aimed at widening your vocabulary, getting used to certain use of English and grammar structures that will enable you to gradually and unconsciously learn without even realizing you're actually learn. So guys, read. And if we go back to the same, when I look back on my own history, when I came to Spain for the first time, I was a teenager, and I was scared. I didn't know much about the language. I remember that I studied a lot, and my teacher said, you're a really good student, but I cannot put the best score in your exam because you still have so many grammar mistakes in Spanish. Yeah. And I remember that I challenged myself and I said, I really want to do my best here. And what I would do in my free time was to grab a lot of books, in Spanish, and to read them. And I remember the first book, I think I understood just 20% of it. Wow. But it was a really interesting book, like a detective-like novel. And if you grab books which are of your interest, even though you might be a bit not that into books, try to do it, even with shorter books. And the more you do it, the more you learn. Promise. Pinky promise.
So there you have it. Keep yourself motivated and don't worry, go the extra mile, get out of your comfort zone. Believe me, it's gonna be totally worth it. And yeah, if you are looking for some classes to practice your level and try to get out of the plateau, you can always count on us.
Yeah, for sure. We're always going to be here for you. And the thing that we like most is to guide you, to help you, to understand what your objectives are so you can reach those goals fast, okay, and nicely. Because teaching, it's not just about teaching, it's about entertaining, and it's about you guys feeling comfortable and motivated. So that's it, guys.
Yeah, so if you like the video or if you like the podcast, just hit the subscribe button. And if you want to learn, leave a comment, you can totally do so. If you want to learn more about this, you have any questions, or if you have any suggestions for future podcasts, we will be more than happy to read those. So yeah, I hope that you have a nice day.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye. Bueno, aquí estoy de regreso y en el episodio de hoy hablamos del Language Plateau, que tenía muchas ganas de conversar. I was really looking forward to it. Porque es algo que ocurre muy seguido a todos los que aprendemos idiomas y, en mi caso, me ocurre con el francés y a Rox con el español cuando vino a España. Nos referimos al Language Plateau a cuando alcanzamos cierto nivel en un idioma y nos quedamos atascados en un punto más intermedio, sin realmente progresar mucho en términos de vocabulario o fluidez. Piénselo como que estamos escalando una montaña
cada vez más alto, pero en un momento nos quedamos en una meseta o plateau y no seguimos avanzando. Rox dice que esto, antes que nada, es bastante común. Y bueno, que esto ocurre porque ya hemos podido amasar cierto conocimiento y somos conscientes de que aún nos queda mucho por aprender y que aún hay errores que se repiten, lo que nos puede desmotivar un poco. Tal vez este sentimiento de que ya no estamos aprendiendo nada nuevo sea más una cuestión de percepción que una realidad, especialmente si se compara al principio de nuestro aprendizaje, cuando todo es nuevo y emocionante. Aunque es seguro que la mayoría de nosotros sabemos mucho más de lo que creemos. También está el caso de que podemos llegar a estar cómodos con un idioma. Nos expresamos bien y entendemos mucho, pero si nos salimos de nuestra zona de confort, las cosas se complican y se sienten inciertas. Things get dicey. Y es que si nos podemos conformar, make do with, con lo que tenemos, no sentiremos esa necesidad de ir más allá, run the extra mile. Cabe aclarar que si la meta de alguien es solo tener una comprensión que les permite comunicarse de manera básica, eso está perfectamente bien. Pero por ejemplo, están los casos de aquellos que necesitan un nivel más avanzado por cualquier motivo que tengan. A mi parecer, it boils down to two things. Se resume a dos cosas que te hacen quedarte en esta meseta. Uno, sentirse cómodo. Y dos, lo que llamo simple practice, que es las cosas que ya tenemos bien afianzadas. Tal vez sea escuchar música en otro idioma, ver pelis o leer y hacerlo sin mucho esfuerzo. Pero esto solo nos sirve como un mantenimiento de nuestros conocimientos. Sin embargo, para salir del Language Plateau hay que hacer deliberate practice. Para ello, hay que pensar en los idiomas como una gama de habilidades. Ya saben, listening, reading, speaking, comprensión de gramática, y si las separas y te enfocas en cada una, te será más fácil diferenciar tus puntos débiles. Esto, por ejemplo, va de la mano con una muy buena recomendación que nos da Rox, y es journaling. Escriban sobre su progreso cada día y podrán notar lo que han hecho mal, lo que han mejorado o incluso incluir nuevo vocabulario. Y te puede enfocar en las diferentes habilidades mencionadas, lo que al final también sirve como una lección de repaso. Esto nos lleva a la tercera parte del deliberate practice, en la cual un profe nos puede venir de maravilla, ya que al ser conscientes de nuestros puntos a reforzar, podemos pedirle que nos ayude con esta tarea y condicionar las clases a temas específicos, como phrasal verbs. Y así luego también se te hace más sencillo poner nuevas metas para la próxima lección. Por otro lado, es recomendable que sepas qué clase de feedback requieres, es decir, saber decirle al profe en qué partes quieres que también se enfoque más en prestarte más atención. Eso sí, hay que también saber recibir el feedback. No se desanimen o sean muy duros consigo mismos. Solo tómenlo como más aprendizaje. Por último, Rox resalta la importancia de leer, y como esto incluso puede ser más importante que ver series o pelis, ya que nos exponemos a vocabulario y estructuras gramaticales más complicadas y menos limitadas por un script de película. Lo bueno de leer mucho es que luego aplicamos ese vocabulario en nuestro día a día sin siquiera notarlo. Luego Rox nos comparte que cuando estaba en el instituto estudiaba mucho y era muy buen estudiante, pero igual cometía muchos errores gramaticales, así que no sacaba las notas más altas, por lo que decidió desafiarse y leer un montón de libros. Y bueno, así que ya saben, no dejen de practicar. Y este episodio fue bastante más breve. Espero que les haya gustado de igual forma y ya saben, si les ha gustado, denle al botón de like, suscríbanse al canal y no olviden seguirnos en todas nuestras redes sociales. Los espero para un próximo episodio y espero que estén muy bien. Take care. Bye.